This is certainly a topic that's close to my heart. I have been doing arts and community engaged work for a long time. As she said, my name is Lynette Overby. I am a professor emeritus at University of Delaware. Previous, I was an associate dean for community engagement at Michigan State University, and I've enjoyed this area and happy to share. My screen just went away. Let's see. Hmm. Can you still see? Ah, okay. Sorry, I don't, I don't know what happened here. Okay. All right, now I'll begin again. Okay, here we go. So, why arts and community engagement? And I think there are a lot of benefits to incorporating community engagement with the arts. There's certainly collaborations, which I found to be very useful with community members, with other researchers, with other artists, and then this ability to connect with issues and concerns in ways that are more accessible through the arts. You can learn about history and you can involve yourself in culture and social issues in ways that are, as I say, more accessible than just reading about it or writing about it. Um, and so and we see that arts activities could include engagement and performing arts. And I talk about going from outreach to engagement, and I'll talk more about that as we move forward. And all right, so my goals are to discuss engaged scholarship, really in general, but really how the arts fit in, and then engage research and creative activities, some multidisciplinary projects that I've been involved in, and also as an individual, but then at the university level where I served as director of our community engagement initiative, our partnership for arts and culture, and how that was a way of placing that emphasis within a community engagement program on a campus. This is a definition that we came up with at the University of Delaware. And because we were very concerned that engaged scholarship would be considered just as important as any other form of scholarship. And so we were able to consider, what does it mean to be an engaged scholar? And we talked about it being mutually beneficial, that with community partners, we can address public issues, and that we can engage in teaching, research, creative activities, or service, and that our goal is really to apply our disciplinary knowledge in collaboration with community partners. And we benefit the local, regional, and global communities and our own scholarships. It's really important that we look at I call it the win-win of community engagement. Yeah. A little bit about what is scholarship, what is engagement, and then the scholarship of engagement. And just to go back to how I became involved in it, I was putting my materials together for merit and promotion, and I had done so much in the community. And just about that time, Ernest Boyer came out with his book, Scholarship Reconsidered. And I was so fascinated with the way that he talked about the importance of not just one form of scholarship as important at a university, but widening that approach and including a scholarship of not just of discovery, but also teaching, integration, and application. And he later termed it scholarship of engagement. In a few years after he came out with this way of thinking in it, it really made universities start thinking differently about, can we be scholarly in all of these areas? Um, and then he was president of the Carnegie Foundation, and he unfortunately passed away, but his thoughts continued, his work continued with a group who decided we need to think about how we assess scholarship, not just one form, but can this way that we assess scholarship be incorporated in all of these ways? And they were able to come up with that. And so what do we mean by scholarship? It's a high level of disciplinary or multidisciplinary expertise that the work is conducted in a scholarly manner. And these words actually came out of the Scholarship Assessed book, where you have clear goals, adequate preparation, appropriate methodology, and that it is appropriately and effectively documented and disseminated, not just to the academic community, but also to the larger community as well. Because we know that many scholars would publish and in their disciplinary journals, but that never really uh, got to the community that could be very helpful for. So we're uh, he's really encouraging us to consider disseminating more broadly. These are some other ways of looking at scholarship. It's judged to be significant and meritorious by a panel of peers. And in this way, when I worked with the Faculty Senate, we talked about, so for community work, that definitely means not just in a peer-reviewed journal, but possibly curriculum that's been created and is being disseminated and used throughout the United States, or other ways that we can look at work to be significant. And it shouldn't not just be another peer from a university who looks at it, but it could be someone from the community who has benefited from this work. So demonstrating ethical practices and relationships. So. And then engagement is a partnership, that partnership of university knowledge and resources with those of public and private sectors to enrich scholarship and research, enhance curricular content, prepare citizen scholars, endorse democratic values, address critical societal issues, and contribute to the public good. And so, again, when we think about engaged research and creative activities, we're talking about the discovery of new knowledge in collaboration with community partners. And in my work, I've tried to do both, to work with academic audience, people, other people in dance, especially since that's my area. And I've published a book on public scholarship and dance where I've kind of outlined how you can be scholarly in this work as you contribute to your community and to your university. So it's very much about dance faculty who work at the university who have had their works not necessarily acknowledged because it doesn't fit in to the ways that other disciplines have, and especially if they work with communities. So this was for them. And of course, we also have our work that goes to audiences, our choreography, our educational components, and I'll talk a little bit more about that specifically. So when I work with people, I always talk about, if you're doing this kind of work, and I'll say this several times in several different ways, but, is it fulfilling community and academic needs, the disciplinary expertise? Is there assessment? You need to have some assessment, and you need to measure your impacts. And this is why I say over and over again, it needs to be co-created, co-implemented, co-assessed, and co-disseminated. I think I got that from Michigan State. So this is a project that I did a few years ago. It's a multidisciplinary collaboration, and it's about Mary Ann Shadd Cary, her life and legacy. So I collaborated with a literary historian, Gabrielle Foreman, and we also collaborated with a composer, with a poet, and of course with my performers in creating a story of her life that we could then share with audiences of all ages. So we call this an arts-based community engaged research project. It had performance, education of oral history, and community engagement. And she was she published the Provincial Freeman. And this is okay. And this is a photo reel about her life. So this was put together after the performance. So this was how we're able to, not just the performance, but also ways that we can continue to share her story with people who don't know her life. And I think I have time to share that. It's a 5-minute photo reel.
Mary Ann Shad
Can you
Carey,
hear?
her life and legacy. Mary, born free, did not have to endure slavery. However, she fought for the rights of enslaved and disenfranchised African Americans. We will now look at a reflection of Mary Ann Shad Carey's legacy throughout her lifetime. In 1800s Wilmington, where Mary Ann grew up, playing fun games was an important part of her childhood. However, it was also a time when education opportunities were denied to African American girls, and that was not okay. Thereafter, Mary Ann and her family moved to Pennsylvania, where there she was educated. During that time, her papa was a leader in the colored convention movement, and her family provided a stop on the Underground Railroad. Her father inspired her. He was her inspiration. The fugitive slave law made it a challenge for free and enslaved African Americans to feel safe. The law was passed by the United States Congress on September 18, 1850, as part of the Compromise of 1850 between Southern slave holding interest and the Northern free soilers. Abolitionists nicknamed it the Bloodhound Law for the dogs that were used to track down runaway slaves. Oh no, this law did not deter the African Americans. They were determined to survive and to stand strong in unity together. After the fugitive slave law was established, Canada became a refuge for many African Americans, including Mary Ann's family. Even Canada was not without its challenges. There was also a challenge that Mary had to face: the fear within herself. But Mary overcame the challenges and became the first African American woman to serve as editor of a major newspaper, the Provincial Freeman. On June 30 of 1855, she wrote, "To colored women, we have a word. We have broken the editorial ice, whether willingly or not, for your class in America. So go to editing, as many of you are willing, and as soon as you may. That's if you think you are ready." At the 1855 Colored Convention, Mary spoke plainly when she stood and told of the evil acts of slavery. She was not alone in her passion on behalf of the people. Oh no, other women overcame their own adversity and stood together in the fight for freedom and equality. In 1871, along with several other forward-thinking women, Mary attempted to register to vote in Washington, D.C. That's right, the women went to their nation's capital to register to vote. Even though they did not succeed, they made sure to get an official signed affidavit recognizing this action. Oh yes, they did. And just as Mary did, our superwomen led us from fear to empowerment, from the unknown to wisdom, from suppression to expression, from following to leading. They give birth to freedom within us. Take a moment and think about a woman in your life who overcame barriers and who is super to you. Together, our legacy is super. We hope you have enjoyed this and learned about Mary Ann Shad Carey, a truly remarkable woman. We hope you will live out her legacy and pass the baton of empowerment to everyone you encounter. Because together, this is our legacy. Mary Ann Shad Carey.
Yes, and we were able to take the program to Alabama, Texas, Belize, as well as to schools, many schools in Delaware, as we engaged that community. These were some students who fell in love with Mary at the end of the performance, and we were in Texas for that performance. We also created educational materials, so we could give those to teachers who were, whose students were able to see the production, and it became a research project as well. So we had a survey for individual audiences at the beginning. We had them to think about what they knew about Mary and Carey before they saw the performance and after. And it was interesting to see some of their comments. They didn't know about anything about her before the performance, many of them said, and then they talked about what they did learn about her. We took this further into, now this was during COVID also. So, I mean, we went to Belize, we were ready to take it even further, and then everything got shut down. And so what we decided to do was, let's look at women who are contemporaries and who are, exemplifying her now. And we paired them with a dancer. We interviewed them, took out quotes from the interviews, and had the dancer create dances based on their quotes. And so these were the women from Canada and from US who were part of that project. This is another project I wanted to share because in here you'll hear the different people who were involved in the project. This was an earlier one. So this one, well, I'll just let you watch. Same story, different countries, as a multidisciplinary production that incorporates poetry, choreography, music, visual images that will tell a story, in fact, tell several stories of the U.S. and South Africa in terms of oppression, resilience or resistance, and liberation.
Remember, apartheid was a legalized form of oppression.
U.S. citizens in the United States were bombed, their homes were bombed.
People were pulled from their homes. People were not allowed to mix cross-racially.
64 houses that had nothing to do with it burned down with it.
If you mixed cross-racially, you were killed, you were beaten. Okay, there was a lot of violence.
I know this is heavy, but this is the time we should get into this.
You're the voices of that history.
We have to make sure that we're doing the move justice every time, and that like we're not just going through the motions, but like we're really trying to tell the people what this wife actually thought in those moments, like her actual feelings.
To free the lives of our leaders, to empty the prisons of all those who should never have been there.
This piece is a tribute to the 4 little girls who were bombed at the 16th Street Baptist Church in Alabama in 1963. And this piece means a lot to me because I feel like I'm dancing out a legacy that they lived.
Tell them for me, I'm going up yonder. This piece is about coming to terms with what has happened in the past, people testifying to what they have witnessed and bringing everything to light.
By seeing a live performance, you see different parts of a reality coming to life. you know, and you can take different parts of that reality and make your conclusion based on that, not just mentally or cogitatively, but also emotionally, spiritually. You have a better connection to that event.
Not only are we working through our own trauma that we live in our lives, but we're also working through the trauma of people that came before us.
What is the background? How did people get to where they are today? And by looking at our past, it's one way to help us. Not only to see, well, these things happen, but how we can move forward and make things better for all of us.
For me, this is a learning process and just learning about my community and where I come from too.
Because it is our history and it's all of our history. It's not just Black's history.
We don't really talk about it, we don't really recover from it, and we just kind of let it sit there and fester and get worse. But we need to talk about it, we need to grieve, and we need to recover.
Right? I love this, I hate this. I love working through my problems, oh my God, I hate it. Right? Okay? So that's the feeling. So just, you know, what is that, you know, for you?
Being able to listen to their stories and put it into our own feelings, I'm able to channel this part of myself that I didn't even know that I had inside of me. I'm feeling something that hasn't happened to me.
Through music and dance, forms that can connect us on the non-intellectual space, not to separate those from the intellect, but that we can connect with in a kinesthetic way, is something that can be the entry point, and then, you know, that beautiful content and the depth of the stories being told.
You've been through a lot. You've like taken the journey through South African apartheid and the U.S. Black civil rights movements.
Okay. And so, you know, so when we look at the kind of work that we've been doing over the years, we really see some benefits to in education, in research, and in community engagement, that the arts are just very much primed to make those connections. Assessment is something I always focus on whenever I work with individuals in the arts or in any area, that we need to make sure both community and university needs are fulfilled, that our disciplinary expertise is applied, that we have measurable impacts, and that co-creation, co-implementation, co-assessment, co-dissemination is there and is judged to be significant by a panel of peers. Our community at the university level. As deputy director and then director of our community engagement initiative, we formed several partnerships. And one of those was the Partnership for Arts and Culture. And our aim was to have multidisciplinary or disciplinary works that connected with community, with specific community issue, and through the arts and working in collaboration, we help to solve or interrogate these issues through the arts. And I'll just go to our website. So our website at the University of Delaware, excuse me, it talks about the partnership itself, but one way, as I said, we were able to make a difference was through our grant program. Excuse me. And these grants were not large grants. We're talking $5,000 grants, and the grants had to be a university faculty member or staff with a community partner. They worked together on a specific issue and came up with a project and then shared that. And I gave them my list of what you need to have in that project, right? It needs to be co-created, co-implemented, co-assessed, has to be all the way through. This is not you taking your music, going into a community and playing it and leaving. You're going to work with them and, all the way through. And so we did this over a series of years. In our final year, we were able to get a $100,000 grant from Jesse Ball DuPont. And so, now that, looking at foundations, I think is very important for, across the university, but we found that they were very supportive of us receiving this funding and then distributing these small grants. We were able to distribute about 20 small grants, faculty and community partner together. Just look at this is from our earlier year. So this was a sociology of art and culture in collaboration with the Wilmington Archive and the Creative Vision Factory. The Creative Vision Factory is where we had men who were homeless, who were in an arts setting and were able to create their art. They would go there to also get other services. And then the sociology professor worked with them to archive their art. So that was, one of the projects. So, their projects are similar, but if you have an opportunity to look through all of these, you'll see a variety from the sciences to music to just many ways are working with our Lenni Lenape community, oral histories, because it is arts and culture that we were focused on. It's another project. This is for the Jesse Ball DuPont project. And so when in all of these productions or all these programs, I would give them a rubric, have them come into a meeting. This is the project. I know you're interested in working this project. This is the person you're interested in working on. Can you think about these steps as you plan out your project? It's very important that right from the beginning, you plan out to have shared interest, shared plan, ongoing discussions on, I call it the formative and summative assessment, as well as disseminating. Right from the beginning, you've thought about how you're going to disseminate, not just, and the university person might present at a conference, but what will the community partner do? So right from the beginning, considering those types of things. So just in conclusion, I guess, talking about arts engaged scholars, it really is no different from any other engaged scholar, right? We were looking at mutual benefits. We're focusing on community partners that address public or some issues. And it could be across our mission of our university, and it could benefit the local, the global, the regional, but it also has to benefit our own scholarship if we're at a university doing this work. It needs to be both. Yeah, so this is just kind of I wasn't sure who was going to be here, but thinking about, have you got a project where you are considering working with a community partner in the arts or beyond? And have you thought about these areas of identifying shared interests, establishing a plan, fostering that reciprocity, assessment, and having a foundation for continued engagement and dissemination? These are some references. And yes, I guess in conclusion, I'd just like to say that I've enjoyed this work for many years, but mostly I've enjoyed the collaborations and the work with my students. As you saw in the video from Same Story, Different Countries, how it impacts them. Many have gone on, a couple of them joined the Peace Corps to do, work in the arts and community work. And then to actually work with the assets in a community to see what together we can bring, what we can do that we couldn't do individually, but we can together make a difference. So thank you. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to take some.
Thank you, Lynette. I loved the way you put this together because it did such a great job of framing scholarship, framing engagement, and then how you bring this specific broader area of arts and culture to it, but it has very much the ability to transfer to any discipline. I know one of the things I loved in working at the University of Missouri in a space where I could help foster creation of new kinds of engagement was a couple of projects we did fostering, bringing the folks in our arts faculty together with some of our extension faculty, and they weren't always community development faculty. Some of them dealt with nutrition, whatever, but they were housed in a community, and they had a responsibility to think more than just, oh, I'm a nutritionist. And really to focus on helping those communities with what the community wanted. And one of them dealt with putting together oral history. One of them dealt with all kinds of broader history and making it available, as well as developing their own local artists and various things. But one of the things that it also led to was, universities tend, when at least those that are a land grant who do training for their extension faculty and whatever, they tend to bring them all to campus or all to an urban area for the training. This led us to do some training out in those communities where you brought faculty and extension faculty and whatever into that community. And the community people were helping doing some of the training. And so, and a lot of school children got involved in it as well. So I really think that broader approach about culture, because it's kind of hard to, pull apart culture and the spiritual, emotional connection and the arts. And I know we've also had at our University of Missouri St. Louis campus, and then it broadened into extension, a long history of working with a regional storytelling festival, which just has brought in all kinds of local storytellers as well as national people that have just covered a whole range of current issues. And then there's always engagement. So there's so many things, so many things. Let's see if we have other comments, questions.
Well, I'm especially interested in the maybe not so much art for art's sake side of it, but more art for human development, since I'm a developmental psychologist. Early in the time when I was associate provost for outreach engagement at MSU, one of the entities that reported to me was the Wharton Center for Performing Arts at Michigan State University. And during the first year I was associate provost, we had to hire a new director for that. We did, and Michael Brand. And we challenged Michael to take an entity on our campus that was relatively isolated from the entire campus. The previous director had run it pretty much as an independent performance center. Didn't really have very great deal of respect for people like deans and other. So we transformed that. We set up with some outside funding, educational wing of it. So what impact can that have? We now have 700 schools in the state of Michigan involved with playwrights. Students can write their little plays. They get involved in a competition. 6 of them are invited to campus, and they receive a week's training from actual playwrights that we bring in from around the country. And then they perform those plays, both in the community and on campus. Take It to the Top involves an enormous number of students involved from they compete in their home schools. They come to campus and spend 2 weeks, and they perform a play, a musical, choreography, the whole thing. And then that goes back. We got a grant from the Kellogg Foundation. They got a grant from the Kellogg, not the Kellogg Foundation, it's the Disney folks. So we now have in Flint and in Detroit, in Lansing, elementary age kids learning how, and their teachers, learning how to produce a musical.
Oh.
Yeah, like The Lion King, like you name it. They get to select it, and then they have these outside people come in, and the teachers are trained. They then can sustain this over time because they know how to set it all up. It includes not just the performers, but also lighting people, staging people, scenery people, everything that's necessary to produce a play. And these are elementary age kids. So those are ongoing kinds of projects that I mean, now involve just an extraordinary number of people. So I'm thinking about that. I'm also thinking about within the context of ACEs, these 7 people who are now members of ACEs or soon to be this year are Indigenous individuals who are also either members of community or academics. And that's really who are who perceive their ethnic traditions as ways of preserving identity, confidence, sense of culture, their culture, under extraordinary oppression and efforts in some cases to exterminate them. And yet here they are. One of the things that enabled them to persevere was through art. Many of them were not allowed to read or learn to read or write, and et cetera, et cetera. We all know those histories. But it was art and culture that singing, dancing, ways to preserve who they are. And so it seems to me that through the process of coffee hours, we may think about setting up culture of learning, involving those individuals, and across the many disciplines that would be involved. So what is involved with this? Yeah, there's the dance. Yeah, there's the song. Yeah, there's the drumming cadence. But there's also the brain that is being stimulated and changed neurobiologically. And so there's also linguistic, and there's all kinds of disciplines that actually could enter into a conversation about the importance of art and culture. We have a decent literature in developmental psychology now, broadly defined, about the importance of art and culture in science. Nobel laureates, two investigators at Michigan State University have spent a lot of time in their academic careers studying Nobel laureates. And Nobel laureates in the sciences tend to have much deeper childhood experiences in art and culture, art and in the arts, especially in music in this case, than do scientists who don't get Nobel prizes. Okay, so we know that music has a mathematical quality to it. Iambic parameter is a rhythm, but it's also a poetry stance of style. It's also a way that the brain organizes itself around things. Anyhow, there are ways that we could bring more disciplines into the conversation about arts, culture, science, and personal identity, especially for very young kids. Children know their sense of identity by age 5 or 6. And often times that's through Irish dancing, Greek dancing, some other cultures dancing, drumming, going to powwows, all those kinds of things contribute to this. So that's where we might be able to get more than 4 people into one of these sessions. But this is the groundwork that could lead us in that direction. Renee has taken a group of folks within ACES, all of whom have some connection to strategic doing, which is a process of getting people organized and action oriented. So there are ways to connect these all together, but also then create small communities of learning within ACES where people can really identify it. We have a fellow down in North Carolina. I get emails, you probably do too, once a week at least, about all the things he's doing for Latinos in North Carolina. And so there's that, those groups who might not yet have found a way to connect to a specific sort of idea or activity within ACES, but all of a sudden would say, whoa, yeah, that's something I could talk about and think about. So
That's awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. Hi, I'll piggyback a little bit. So Lynette, a number of things were coming up for me as I was listening, to you. I was off camera, I was focusing. I was trying to just kind of keep my attention focused on what you were saying and what I was seeing. And I appreciated your really calling out and breaking down just the key elements. This is scholarship element, this is engagement, how engagement is different than outreach. And I think a lot of times things get really meshed together, the lines, And so being able to call that out was specific, and I appreciated that. The questions that come up for me and where I'm gonna tag on well, first let me see a couple of things. I appreciated the diversity of ways in which you demonstrated being able to engage people and capture what happened, the performances themselves, the real, the conversations, the books that were written, all those things that really kind of help bring clarity around what exactly these things are. Because what I find, and I'm guilty of this, I love lots of different things. So meshing them together and you can't see the lines at all. It's just all in here. I call it ragu-like. It's all in here. But I also think there's great value in pulling things out and clarifying what things are what. So we know exactly what's in that mix. If you're integrating, across a variety of things, I think it's really important to be able to call that out. As I really enjoyed just hearing how various different things came out of the way the work happened, touching on both the dance and the music, but then being very clear of the intention of connecting and a message and especially the I love so I love that whole calling out. I will tell you, I love it's just I fight for it's like, when are we gonna do that's what I want to know. So I really appreciate that being called out. A couple things that stood out to me when we move from this to practice is I also believe art is very strong in terms of connection, people being able to take some form of artistic expression. I play around with graphical, as a facilitator, consultant person, being able to paint pictures and words where people can see their thoughts out of their heads and organized in ways that help them think about next and also serve as artifacts we can go back to that conversation. It's not going to be in vapor. It's going to be. So I was curious about, as we are exploring here in ACES, ways to engage. And hi, I'm right there with you around creating environments and spaces that invite people to bring their discipline and explore, the connectivity of ways that we can get that transdisciplinary, element working. Where I stand is if I put in the middle something that's happening in our world. I'll I'll pick um I'll pick climate, not for climate's sake, but because I like to approach climate with systems oriented solutions. So next to climate, I'm going to put compost. I'm going to put food waste diversion and compost next to that, because I'm helping people shift mindsets to moving away from, ooh, yuck. What about, excuse me, but you ate. We ate. Everybody ate. We have to be responsible for what happens with what we don't eat, both in terms of the good it can do and the harm you can prevent by your action. So as I was listening, I was thinking about these big issues that we have and how we effectively bring and introduce art in a very accessible way. Like, I was thinking about this, my granddaughter, she just turned 6, she can dance. Her mother's 38, she cannot dance. Now, we don't understand that because she's like, how in the world? you know, but cannot, she just cannot dance, right? However, movement as well as drawing, and I have art here that Kylie's been drawing for me since forever. She's 6, but she's been drawing since she got here, right? And so how do we bring and make art accessible in ways that people don't feel like
They
I
have to be an
can't?
artist. Yeah.
You don't, because what I had to learn as a facilitator, as a consultant, as a person who helps visualize things, I learned it as process.
Yes.
It's not about art, it is process. So for me, I have this little book titled Ish.
Uh-huh.
And it was about this little boy who was drawing, 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 drawing. And his big brother came in and said, "What the heck? That's not drawing." And he just started throwing his stuff away because his
Oh.
brother just took the pen and blew it. But his
Mhm.
little sister, on the other hand,
Mhm.
she was taking everything he drew and
Mhm.
was wallpapering her room. And one day he had stopped drawing because his
Mhm.
brother had said, but he had picked up something he had just started, and he was drawing on something and threw it away. His little sister grabbed it and ran into her room with it. He chased her into the room to get it back, right? And he walked in there and he saw all of this stuff on the wall
Mhm. Well,
and had this, so I think my point there is making it accessible
yeah,
because,
I can definitely speak to that because, well, actually, for
yeah.
10 years at Michigan State, I did a workshop every summer, Institute for Teachers, basically, where they learn about arts integration. So you don't have to, and of course, dance is the one area, but oh no, I can't. But it's all about movement and understanding that there are levels, directions, focus. You can move smooth, you can move sharp. All of a sudden, oh, well, these are the elements of movement. There are elements of music. There are elements of
Mhm.
drama that we can, in one week, you can be a choreographer, you can be a visual artist, and so it does, it's not something we learn in school,
Right. So
that
I'm thinking
there
about
are
making it,
basics.
yeah, and I'm thinking about making it accessible to facilitate conversations for action.
Hmm.
So we're in the room, we're moving,
Yeah.
we're visualizing things that don't
Hmm.
have to be perfect,
Hmm.
but
It's not.
they all become like boundary objects, if you would,
Hmm.
to
Hmm.
move us into deeper conversation,
That's exactly right.
creating safe space, psychologically safe, physically safe,
Hmm.
all those things so that we can actually get into the conversation. So I would love to spend some time with you and others that we could bring into a conversation. I'm thinking of some people I know even outside of this group that I hang out with people doing cybernetics and systems work. So I love the fact that you called out systems change as a
Hmm.
part of this because what I'm seeing in my practice and being in the world is there's some underlying kinds of things that if we can integrate them together,
Yeah.
we can have a stronger base to move us on a trajectory of change. And I really do believe that art can help do that. You know, I believe conversation is strong around that. I believe systems, being able to help people see that we live in systems, but to visibilize them so that we are okay with interrogating them, you know, and doing that. So I appreciate this conversation, and I'd love to talk more about how we can, you know, create some space and invite some ACEs members into this, piggybacking off what
Love
Hai
to.
said of
Yeah.
different disciplines, and how do we create a conversation that invites them in for action?
Yes, yes, and I love that idea. In fact, it's something I truly believe in. You don't have to. The movement piece is for everyone. We move all the time.
All the
Just that
time.
we're just labeling it. We're moving
Yes, yes.
slowly, and we are mountain shape. You know, we can
Mhm,
easily take our bodies and our drawing or our drama, our
mhm,
voices,
mhm,
and express in ways that
mhm.
help us to have a deeper connection to one another or to
Yes,
society or to issues that we would not
yes.
have if we did not integrate those ideas. So um, it is
Yeah.
10:59, so I
Mm,
guess we have to close this out, but I feel like it's
mm.
just the beginning. It's an opening.
Yes,
It's an opening for
yes.
us to consider ways that the arts can connect and help us to, especially in the world we're living in today, have a way out, have a
Yes.
way to express and expand. So I'll turn it back over to Mary now.
Okay, but I think we may want to think about doing
Thank
something
you.
with this topic that we make it more broadly available, because there are so
Mhm.
many opportunities and there's so many people out there that are probably going to be really hungry for this, both at the academic level, but in the community level. And if it can help bring them together, I think that would
Oh,
be
absolutely.
wonderful. You know, and I couldn't help but think of,
Mhm.
even early in my career, working with a colleague, and we were doing community economic development. And this was during the rural economic crisis in the 80s. We're out in rural communities. Well, how did we get people in touch with the issues and start talking about what it meant for them? He had a bucket with holes in it. And the idea came from another colleague in Wisconsin, so it wasn't original. But what my colleague did, though, is would toss out pieces of yarn and let people see how they were connected and what impact this had then on them in their
Mhm.
community. And it led to discussions about, well, what resources do we have here that we could do something with?
Mhm.
What,
Exactly.
what could we do? Like, gee, we could make a business out of doing something with compost, or all these different kinds of things. And it was that visual, and then
Mhm.
them getting participating in it, not just observing the discussion about it, but they each had a piece of yarn, and somebody tugged on this part and it represented this or that. So I just think there's so many opportunities.